Hi everybody, Alex Jaffe here. Insert Credit is having an off week, so I thought I'd make it up to you with some off-season exhibition matches for Violence Island. I'm here to provide some binding verdicts on some of the who would win in a fight matches submitted on forums.insertcredit.com before we begin our next official season next month. Our first match is from Yeso, who asks, Tommy Tallarico versus Todd Howard. Now, I see Todd as being in more of an supervisory role at this point, whereas Tommy Tallarico is a much more aggressive presence. He's more of a door-to-door salesman kind of guy, someone who will go to no lengths or rather go to every length to secure the win he's looking for, no matter what path that takes him on. Todd Howard, I read a little bit up on, he got an engineering major because it was the easiest way for him to get through college. That's not really something that'll pay off on the battlefield, I think, looking for the easiest way through. Tommy Tallarico, he's a grinder. You gotta give that up to him. I think Tallarico wins that match, regardless of who you happen to be rooting for. All right, our next match comes from Corey, who asks Ristar of the Ristar video games versus Staffy or Starfy of those games, depending on who you like to pronounce them. Now, Staffy has a wide array of powers, but in Ristar, there's a moment where you see him moving so fast that he's able to escape a black hole, literally making him faster than light. And I think that puts him in the upper echelon of the shadow band characters we've had here on the show before. And I don't think Starfy has anywhere near that level of power to compete with his star-shaped doppelganger here. Root 5th Octave asks, Clytemnestra versus Jocasta, two Greek mythological figures. Jocasta is kind of a passive presence in the story of Oedipus, but Clytemnestra conspires with her lover to murder Agamemnon, and then they do that together. So we know that she's killed before, and she can do it again, which is a lot more than we can say for Jocasta. So I think Clytemnestra has this. Kakagins asks, Sans Undertale versus Manny Calavera, two wacky skeleton men from video games. I think Manny wins this one because Sans fails to show up to the fight. Skibump asks, Seymour Guado versus Seymour Skinner, two guys with the same first names. Gotta give it to Seymour Guado. I don't see how Skinner does this one. I guess you asked this because they're two famous Seymours. I don't know how Seymour Butts would have fared, but probably still would have given it to Guado. Giga Slime asks Francis York Morgan versus Kazuma Kiryu. Now, Francis York Morgan is your A1 weird guy. You can't get better than him when it comes to video game weird guys. He would definitely put Kiryu on edge, but I think Kiryu's had to deal with weirdness before. He can adapt to it. And he's too unflappable a guy to be fazed by Morgan for long, even considering their disparity in weapons and firearms. I think Kiryu can kick whatever gun Morgan's wielding out of his hand and pull out a win. He's been through worse. The Brian JZX90 asks, Jermaine Clement versus Richard Ayoade. This isn't really a video game fight, but I still want to give it to Jermaine because he feels like he has more commitment to the bit than Ayoade does. He's willing to go that extra mile. He's in these big weird movies. He's out there being a vampire, boldly suffering in the shadows of having developed one of the most successful shows on TV right now, while Taika Waititi gets all the credit, despite not really working on that at all. It's really funny to see him tweeting about that, so I really want to give Jermaine the win here. Victory, Jermaine. Kez asks, Agro, the horse from Shadow of the Colossus, versus Epona, the horse from The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, or Ocarina of Time, as you may prefer. Agro sees a lot more combat than Epona does. The main place you really use Epona is in Hyrule Field, and I don't know, occasionally there's a Poe out there or something and you shoot off the back of Epona, but Agro has to deal with a lot more in terms of direct threat, and I feel like that kind of combat presence is really going to pay off if these two horses had to fight each other. I'm giving it to Agro. Dylan Phils asks, Geralt versus Sonic. It's Sonic. Come on, get out of here. Fridge Boy asks, Joe Manchin versus Aaron Sorkin. Aaron Sorkin is like 10 years younger than Joe Manchin. Both don't really seem like physically active guys, but I am going to give it to Sorkin. And I feel like that's enough. All right. join us next week when hopefully we'll be doing episode 250 of Insert Credit, and be on the lookout in September for the return of Violence Island.
And there he is.
There he is, the man himself.
The old Craig.
Ain't what he used to be.
You want some more updates while we wait on Judaism in the Bay Area?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Because I was thinking about, like, why is it that I had so many Jewish friends growing up and all that? So I looked up, like, what is the Jewish population of the San Francisco Bay Area, and it is the 4th largest community in America.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, but also one of the most scattered, because everybody is just, like, everywhere. And it's also it's like not that many people. It's like 250,000.
I'm guessing that the top 3 are New York, Miami, and Chicago.
Yeah. Wait, I don't know about Chicago, but New York and Miami for sure. There was one other that it was a little hard to find, but that came from some official, like, Jewish University research something thingy, that paper that I was reading. But yeah, they said that it's also a very scattered group, because people are just, like, in San Francisco or Berkeley or Hayward or whatever, and there isn't like a real hub. But there's a lot of synagogues in Berkeley, and that's where I was born, and so that's what was up with that.
I am looking at jewishvirtuallibrary.org, the largest Jewish populated metropolitan areas in the United States, and they have the San Francisco, Oakland, Berkeley area at number 12.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, as of 2020.
Not looking good.
No. Well, you beat Riverside, San Bernardino, in Ontario, so that's something.
Yeah, okay. That's pretty good.
But
those are pretty
you're
big
behind Boston, Cambridge, Newton.
Interesting. I wonder, because that other thing, well, I wonder where that came from. What numbers are they giving?
They are giving a total Jewish population of 244,000.
Yeah, okay. That's in line with the thing that I was reading, except for the number being high.
I see what may be going on here. What may be going on here is that your numbers were by straight population. These numbers are by what percent of the population is
yes.
Jewish.
That's right.
I saw that
as well.
I think San Francisco is, in fact, if not number 4, close to number 4.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Yeah, it's in raw number of humans rather than percentage of population.
5.2% of the San Francisco Bay Area is Jewish.
Yeah.
Whereas 4.7% of Los Angeles is, and 11% of New York is.
Yeah. New York has a lot of pals over there. Well, there you go.
There you go. It is.
That's also I think the first wedding I ever went to was Jewish, and they stepped on a glass, and I was like, well, that's fun. Dude got raised up in a chair. Oh, what's the thing where you put, like, the prayer boxes all over your body?
The tefillin.
Yes.
They're phylacteries is the English term for it. They're boxes which contain pieces of scripture in it, specifically the Shema, which is basically the Pledge of Allegiance to God that will spread his teachings. And we're supposed to wear it every morning at prayer. And there are these guys who, these Chabadniks, who just, like, stand on the corner in heavily Jewish areas and ask people, did you put on tefillin today? Did you put on tefillin today? And if you're foolish enough to say no, then they stop you and make you put on tefillin.
I have two things to say about that. One is that I knew a guy, like, someone my friend's mom was dating put those on. I thought they looked neat because I'd seen Bloodsport, and the Muay Thai fighters, like, wrapped stuff around their arms. And I was like, is it like that? It's definitely not, though. But I thought the boxes were cool, and these ones were, like, nice and ornate and old looking, and that was kind of fun. But then the other thing, and this is pretty ridiculous, is, speaking of people stopping you walking down the street, when I was in college, there was, like, a Jewish club, or like there were just a bunch of Jewish folks out there trying to get people to come to,
like a Hillel Center, a Chabad Center,
to temple or whatever. Yeah. And multiple times I got stopped by them. And one time the guy was like, hey, are you Jewish? And I was like, no. And he points at his nose, referring to mine. He's like, you sure?
Oh, God. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
That's rough.
It was funny, though.
I guess he's the guy who can make that joke.
He's the guy who can make that joke. And since he made it about me, I can tell that joke.
You absolutely can. You're within your bounds here.
But it was that was like I don't know if that's the approach you want to be taking, buddy.
Well, yeah, the thing about college outreach centers is that the people doing the outreaching are dumb college kids.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, yes.
Yeah.
It's the main thing about college. Everybody's like that over there.
Exactly.
The whole lot of them.
We're all just kind of shedding our former ideas of ourselves.
I had one friend in college who, he was the guy that introduced me and Vincent Diamante. And maybe I've mentioned this, maybe I haven't. But he was going around like meeting everybody in the dorm. And Vince and I both had Dreamcasts before they were out in America. And so he was like, you two should talk. And then we did, and then we became friends. But this guy, he was like friendly and cool. And he actually wrote a couple things for Insert Credit. But then it turned out that the time when he met us and hung out with us was the mandatory faith questioning period during his whatever extremely Christian group he was part of. He was supposed to have.
Are you saying he was on a Rumspringa?
Something like that. Really, he wasn't Amish, but he was basically on something similar and was talking to all us. What's the word for non-religious people that I'm blanking on?
Seculars?
Secular people, yeah. He was hanging out with the seculars. And then he, like, changed his mind, and he went back to it, and then he was like, you need to delete everything I've ever written on Insert Credit. And essentially, we're not friends anymore. And that was it. So that was the end of that guy. Pretty weird.
Well, the good news is he'll never be online for you to hear this.
That's right.
I guess.
Yeah, he'll never know about it.
He'll never know.
I just came back here from the Japanese consulate because I'm trying to get a visa to go to Japan, and it sure is annoying. This is what the rest of the world experiences. I know that we're extremely privileged having American passports and don't usually have to get visas for everywhere. But every time I've had to get a visa, it's like you're crossing your fingers up until the day that you leave that it will arrive and that you will have it, because there's so many fiddly moving parts and little nonsenses. Like, for example, there are 2 instructions. One of them tells you that you must not tape the little passport photo to your application. You should glue it there. But then another one says that you should tape it there. So one says absolutely do not tape it, definitely glue it. But the first time you see it, it says to tape it there. And so it's like, do they want it stuck to this document forever, or do they want to be able to use it separately? I don't know. So I pasted one with glue, and then I just included the second one loose because I was like, I don't know what you want. Classic times. But maybe I'll be going to Japan. We'll see. It's very hot there.
How hot is it there right now?
Like 80 to 90 degrees, but with a lot of humidity that makes it feel 10 degrees hotter.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I'm from Florida. I know.
Yeah, you know about that. Now, I haven't been to Florida year round, but what I haven't experienced in Florida is the, like, wading through soup variety of humidity.
It's bad.
Maybe, I assume you probably have it, but the worst I ever experienced was once in Japan and once in Taiwan. There was a particular part when I was a little bit north of Taipei in Taiwan, and I couldn't tell if it was raining or if I was sweating or if it was just humidity, because everything was just wet. But I couldn't really see properly what was happening. So I was like, what? And it was massively hot. So it's like, which of these things is occurring? I have no idea. Very strange.
So,
yes.
I finished my lunch.
Frank finished his lunch.
I did it.
I'll be honest, I was hoping you wouldn't be able to finish your lunch, not because I dislike you, but because I was hoping that your prediction about our particular situation right now would be incorrect.
I was hoping that too, but
yeah.
Frank, what do you think is my favorite Batman the Animated Series episode?
Episode, wow.
Yeah. Well, okay, what's yours? If you could think of one off the top of your head. I wonder if I could...
I know mine.
I'm thinking. Like, the ones that stick out in my mind the most have really incredible animation.
Mhm.
So like Clayface Part 2.
Sure.
Or Harley and Ivy. It's another one with really good animation. Heart of Ice is really tempting. It's a really good episode.
Yeah.
I have a real bone to pick with Heart of Ice for very complex reasons.
Okay.
There was this villain in the 80s Batman and the Outsider series by Mike W. Barr. In the 5th issue, they had this guy named Cryonic Man, who was completely separate from Mr. Freeze. But he had that tragic backstory, like trying to revive people who were under ice. And Bruce Timm and Paul Dini, they get all this credit for like breathing new life into this goofy Mr. Freeze villain when they stole all of it wholesale from Mike Barr.
Interesting.
I see.
Well, that makes sense.
What else? The one where like the Hardak clone comes back. I really like that one.
Oh yeah, the one that inspired Big O.
I really like the Poison Ivy trying to have a family one.
That's really good.
You
haven't mentioned any of my top 3 yet.
The Two-Face two-parter is really good.
That's really good, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, if I'm picking one, it's probably one of those.
Okay. Well, for me,
but I would like to hear what your guess is for mine because I might not have thought of it.
Oh well, I wasn't 100%. I kind of would have gone with one of those. Probably like I would have gone with Harley and Ivy or like Two-Face Part 2 or something like that. Probably for you. For me, I think I like I like ones that have a little bit of an extra treat just for me, and also have some kind of meta thing going on with them. So the one for me off the top of my head is the Grey Ghost.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah,
even though as an episode, it's maybe not like I don't care for the villain, and I really like the Joker a lot, and he's not in it. But Grey Ghost is great because I think I have a special relationship with that one because I saw it live when I was a kid, and the internet was not as pervasive. And so to hear Batman's idol be Adam West and in real time get to do the DiCaprio sitting on the couch pointing at the screen thing.
You invented that as a child.
That's right. It was very good.
My 3 favorites are all kind of united by the theme of a regular guy being pushed to brink.
Jaffe, I was going to guess Clock King.
Clock King is one of them, yes.
It's also one of mine.
I just remembered one of mine, but I'll let Jaffe finish.
All right. So my 3 favorites are Clock King, which is just a great illustration of a villain who's almost completely in the right and just rages against corrupt small government. There's Joker's Favor, which is about this guy, Charlie Collins, who gets mad at a guy who cuts him off in traffic, and it turns out to be the Joker who ruins his life.
Is that the one with Harley Quinn having that great line? It was a small subpoena.
Yes,
I love
that was
so much.
No. Actually,
no, that's not that episode.
Small subpoena is from.
That was Sid the Squid. Whatever that was. The man who killed Batman or whatever.
That's my 3rd favorite. The man who killed Batman.
Yeah.
Joker's Favor is the first Harley Quinn episode. That's the one where she says, "I quit beauty school for this."
Yeah.
But those are my 3 favorites, and they're all kind of about a regular guy in Gotham who gets swept up into the ridiculousness of being in Batman's world, and it's great.
The one I just remembered that I like is I like a lot of the ones that don't have a colorful villain, that are just like about Gotham and corruption and stuff. I really like Appointment in Crime Alley.
I love that one. Yes,
that's a top 10 for me for sure. Might be, I don't know, depending on the day, might be top 3.
What's that one where Bruce Wayne gets amnesia and ends up in like a chain gang?
Oh,
with Fat Man.
Yeah, like the forgotten, the misremembered, something like that.
That one's not great. It's fine.
Yeah. It's funny in a way. So many episodes where they manufacture drama with in that one, for example, once he remembers that he's Batman, then he's strong enough to kick through his solitary confinement cage.
Well, yeah, he remembered Kung Fu.
Yeah, he remembers he's Batman. And there's so many things where like the cliffhanger for the commercial break is that he fell off a building or he got kicked off a building.
Yeah,
it's like he's gonna use his friggin' whatever they call that bat clippy thing. Like, he's going to use it. He's going to use his grapple gun. I don't. This cliffhanger does nothing for me.
Yeah.
It's insulting, frankly.
Because it needs to be there for the commercial to happen.
Yeah, goofy times.
God, what else? I'm just trying to think through these episodes. The musical number in the one where Harley and Batman team up is really
Harley
good.
Quinn. Say that we're sweethearts again.
I mean, do you know how that got in the show? It's in the commentary. It's so good.
Wasn't that part of Arlene Sorkin's like burlesque show routine?
That's not the story that was told. The story told by Paul Dini was that he heard the song on the radio in the car, and he's just like, I want Harley Quinn to sing that.
Ah.
And like they just went and licensed it because he loved it so much.
What station is he listening to?
I don't know.
Like 1930s novelty songs.
NPR.
Muppet Show Radio?
Yeah, it does seem like an interstitial NPR thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what's weird to think about is how growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, there was so much media that had to do with the 40s or the 30s.
Yeah.
Like Batman has the kind of 20s to 40s aesthetic going on. Simpsons were all like 40s references and vaudeville jokes.
The whole Beer Baron episode.
The Animaniacs, they were locked in there since the 40s or the 50s. There's just so much of that. It feels like...
Well, we're getting that now with like Stranger Things and all the 80s stuff.
Certainly. But the 40s feels weird because I understand the 80s because it's contemporary enough to have nostalgia for. Like, I think things have changed musically and culturally little enough since then that it's more of a nostalgia play. But like when you get 40s to the 90s, it's like none of us kids knew about. We were learning about that stuff from The Simpsons, and
I think you're just.
I don't know. Looney Tunes were around.
That's true. Looney Tunes. That's
I think you're just saying that because you were alive from the 80s to now, and you weren't alive from the 30s to the 90s. It's a little bit different.
I mean, I think that the difference that I see is that young people are wearing 90s clothes, but young people were not wearing 40s clothes.
No.
You know? Like,
we were wearing 90s clothes.
It was specific weird references that were happening at the time. And also, those references were, you couldn't look them up back then. Now you totally can look up.
So I think if you're looking at what the youth were into, you're looking in the wrong place. You need to be looking at what the creators of this media were into, right? Like you need to be looking at like Steven Spielberg, right? Like that, like what's he into? And he's into cinema from that era.
That's I guess kind of the gap that I'm seeing is that I realize and recognize that all of the people that made the stuff that we watched were into 40s stuff for some reason, but
I also feel like they were done with the 50s by the 90s. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
I feel like they moved somewhere else. But sorry, go on.
Yeah, but I think that with the 80s stuff, there's a little more organic interest than just top down from older people kind of thing, if that makes sense. Like, I think young people also naturally discovered the 80s and 90s these days versus back then. It was like Steven Spielberg and Paul Dini were like, the 40s, those were pretty neat. Think about that. My parents, whatever.
Well, they were specifically influenced by the Fleischer Superman cartoons, which were contemporary at the time.
Yep, it's true.
Well, I think, Brandon, that you're kind of stuck on like kids getting into the culture. And I question if that ever happened pre-internet.
Yeah, that's I mean, it happened to me a little bit. I think it happened, but it was a much shorter cycle because like I listened to my dad's 70s records and
oh sure, yeah,
and you know you could find your parents' fringe jacket deep in the closet and be like, I'll wear this or whatever. So there was a bit of it, but not. Yeah, the internet changed all of that and made the cycles faster and different and weirder. In probably a good way. I just think the 40s it's odd, especially since in the 80s there was a 50s revival and there was like a whole greaser thing that happened, and then that was gone, and then the 40s were back. That's not the usual
You're right.
Right.
That is very strange.
Yeah.
I mean,
Huh.
there does seem to be parallels between the 80s and 50s that I don't entirely understand. Is it like economical or something, right? Like, they feel maybe it's just Back to the Future, right? that is
Yeah, maybe
warping me
so. Yeah, it
into
links.
thinking that the 50s and the 80s are kind of the same thing.
Right.
Well, the 50s, but there was also like there's that popular band, the Stray Cats.
Like I think of the 80s as the era of the 50s diner was like the 80s to me.
No, that's right. Because there was a Stray Cats band. There was the movie Grease. There's Happy Days and the Fonz.
A lot of draft kids returning.
I guess 50s and 80s both had a certain kind of like conservative, optimistic prosperity for suburban people, for suburban white people specifically. Maybe that's the link up there. People
Like,
came
the
back
war's
from
over. Don't think about the war. The war is over. Don't think about the war.
Yeah, the war's over. Patriarchy's doing great. You got your Reagan in the White House in the 80s, and he was like a 50s actor.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, and then what are they going to do after that? Like the 60s? Come on, that's not coming back.
No.
Well, the 60s kind of like in certain ways never left. The 60s, I feel like changed things forever, but in a way that was like we don't need to return to it because parts of like you could find hippies of the exact same type as used to exist. They are still present.
They're in the fourth most populous Jewish population area.
That's right.
That's true.
That's where they are.
Look, the way we know the 60s are here to stay is a little something called Austin Powers.
Goodness. Some people tell me that the first movie is fun. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I can visualize that. I haven't seen them either, Brandon, but it's like I can visualize the first one having fun ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I think all three of them have fun ideas, at least.
And I also can visualize that now that people don't reference it anymore, I might be able to appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, it's possible. Have either of you watched the Scary Movie franchise? Anything in there?
No.
So, as you may know, Scary Movie is like lampooning horror films contemporary to the time. So, like, the first one was like Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer mashed up. But so I had never watched them at the time. So I was like, that's too stupid for me. And I'm trying to watch them now. And I forgot how much the Wayans specifically, who wrote and directed this movie, lean in on homophobia for like 90% of their jokes. You know, I remember that from the era that was something that happened a lot, but wow, I really almost every
I
joke.
remember being really surprised by that when I watched Bad Boys.
Oh.
I bet there's a lot of that in Living Color if you go back.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
I don't know. Like, I haven't seen it since it was literally aired, but I assume that it might be rough to go back to.
So
exactly.
Yeah, well, in Living Color also had the, I believe that's the one that had the, no, that was Mad TV, that had the white woman playing the Asian laundry lady. And she was like, no, it's not racist because, and then whatever she said after that was just some sort of static noise.
I never got into Mad TV because even as a kid, I'm like, oh, this is just a white in Living Color. I don't care.
Yeah, Mad TV really rubbed me the wrong way as a child. I felt insulted by it somehow.
Yeah, I would watch it, but I would be upset that there was nothing better than Mad TV on at that time. That like I had to settle for Mad TV.
We had a little bit of cable going on, or was Mad TV on cable?
It was on Fox.
Oh, yeah. Really?
Okay. Yeah, it was another Fox show. Like which well, I mean, maybe I'm misremembering, but my memory is it's another Fox show, which just gave that connection to In Living Color. You know, it made it stronger somehow for me that like, okay, it's just the other In Living Color, the whiter one.
It was on Fox, 1995 to 2009.
There we go.
That's a lot of years, dang.
A lot of years.
2009? Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Wow, my memory is that show lasted like 3 seasons.
Yeah, mine too. Goodness. Well,
yeah.
I don't recommend Scary Movie.
No.
Okay.
And yeah, I think that's where I land on it. I watched. I can't tell all the stories of this, I guess, because we're going to use it for bonus material. But I watched the movie Chaos Walking, which a friend of mine was he was like the last person to rewrite the script, and he recommended that I do not watch the movie, but it was expiring on Hulu, and so I finally watched it. It was pretty bad. Are you aware of this movie at all?
No.
Okay, so the idea is that a bunch of humans on a colony ship land in this new world, but in this world, men's thoughts are visible and audible all the time.
Oh, God.
Yes. And but women's are not. And so
it's an opposite what women want, but with everybody.
yes. And there is a What Men Want movie that came out somewhat recently. But anyway,
that was great.
Yeah, I'm sure it was excellent. So it's that premise, a bit sci-fi, but God, it had to be so annoying to write, because you have to write this person's spoken dialogue and then a bunch of dumb thoughts for them to have surrounding that. It just seemed so miserable to write.
Okay, so Mad TV was on the air on Fox from 1995 to 2009. Then, in 2016, 7 years later, it comes back on the CW.
I did hear that it was briefly back. Who wanted that? The CW doesn't exist anymore, right?
It's being sold to some
Discover
conglomerate
or something.
No, Discovery is who merged with Warner Brothers. They have sold the CW, or in the process of selling CW, to some other party who wants to cater the network to 56-plus-year-olds. Because
I
apparently
still confuse the CW with the WB. And the WB only existed for like 2 years or something.
Yeah, but they had a cartoon frog. So
they had a cartoon frog, and I didn't watch anything on either channel, and so to me they're always going to be the same.
The final episode of Mad TV, which aired on September 27th, 2016, has a sketch where Bernie Sanders becomes Colonel Sanders.
Wow, that is a very white and living color. Yeah.
What a situation.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
something about 99% of herbs and spices or something, I'm sure. All right, well, I can call it on Tim not being here this week.
We could just release this and call it Waiting for Timbot. He'd probably hate it.
He'd probably hate it. I don't want to do that.
Oh, whatever. It's fine. He's cool. He's a tough guy. He understands the world. He'll be fine.
Ah, boy. I love him. Good guy.
Funny guy, that Tim.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to let you guys go.
Okay. All right. Bye.